The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management. It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Natural Lawn and Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand my ups and downs.
Good morning. Welcome to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan. It's great to have you with us this wonderful weekend. And I'm also very happy to have back in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, our very own Christopher Widerp Huberty with fastest fingers on the board. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good to be back. How was your week last week when I was out?
It was we had a great show, even though you weren't there to help produce it. But we've got to know you left because of a very special time. You got married.
I did last Friday, the 17th.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say it went off without a hitch, but I think it did go off with a hitch.
It technically did, yeah.
Yeah. So, but tell me a little bit about the wedding for our listeners. I'm sure they want to hear. Now, were you wearing I'm imagining a powder light blue tuxedo with a
bright
frilly
orange.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, wore kind of a charcoal gray, kind
Okay.
of lavender tie. My wife, got used to saying wife. My wife likes lavender, so did that. I was going to be outside, got rained out, but the church accommodated us very well.
And you know, I mean, you're important, of course. The bride needs a groom,
Right.
but you're also inconsequential on that day.
Correct.
You're just arm candy.
Correct.
And you know, you showed me some pictures of the wedding, and all I can say is, if I can use a football metaphor, buddy, you outputted your coverage.
Oh, without question.
Yeah,
without question.
And your wife's name is Emmeline.
Correct.
And you were in Colorado and had a great time.
Yep, last week went up to Estes Park, about an hour north of Denver. Hadn't been there since I was about 7, so it was good to be back.
Okay.
Even had a little bit of snow when we drove through the Rockies. So.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad to have you back.
Yep.
When I had my first wedding, we're talking about 1981, I had what would look like sort of the Arthur Duncan look. Do you know who Arthur Duncan is?
I've heard the name. I'm having trouble.
He was the man. He was the guy that did tap dancing on the Lawrence Welk show.
Oh, wow.
That came into our homes every Saturday, long time ago. So yes, I had the white tails. It was
nice.
Quite a look.
Whenever you want to share those pictures,
yes,
feel free.
All right, we'll do. Well, folks, it's great to have you with us here on Where You Live. We've got a lot of great stories that we're going to cover. Interesting fact here, you know, when a politician or our elected officials use words such as sudden, arbitrary, capricious, it's generally used to justify the need for a new law, a new regulation. But what happens when the capriciousness and the arbitrary and sudden nature is coming from those from government? Well, that's going to be the topic of the stories today on Where You Live. So let's, without further ado, begin with property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. Now, if you wish to avail yourself of special pricing and discounts you're not going to find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners can call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson. Her number, 952-224-2663. That number again, 952-224-2663. Well, let's turn to our first story, shall we? This comes from Inman News, which is an online news source, about a week or two ago, talking about FHA and a major policy shift that's going to leave many condominiums ineligible for financing. Now, we've talked and reported on this show many, many times that over the last few years, because of the real estate bubble bursting and properties being underwater and some of the major changes, FHA has scrambled in their qualifications for a condominium to become eligible so that they can receive FHA financing for the person who's going to be purchasing a home. And this is very major because in many cases, we're talking about with the HOA industry, one of the reasons for the big appeal with homeowner associations is because they're quite affordable. And because of that, you're finding that there is a large portion of the populace that finds it very attractive. And then you have FHA financing, which is a very popular source for financing a home because it requires a smaller amount down, a little bit easier in the eligibility requirements, at least so far. But now there are some changes that are taking place that are just major. Now, one of the things that I'd like to just ask you, our listener, to think about, and that is, how many, on the average now, how many new regulations a day have been pro-offered by our current administration? Do you know the answer to that? How many? What would be the average? The average amount. Do you have any idea? Well, according to CNS News and the Media Research Center, they have been watching this very closely. And the last 5 years of our current administration, they say the average is about 68 new regulations a day. That comes to over 2,000, just over 2,000 in a month. Talk about sudden. Talk about arbitrary. Can we use the word capricious? If in a homeowners association, a homeowner association board came close to pro-offering even a half a dozen new regulations and new laws every other month with the association, I think most of the members would stand up and say, what the heck is going on here? We're not going to stand for this. But we've gotten used to, comfortable to the fact that, I guess that's something the government needs to do. And a lot of times we've talked about what happens. There is the law of unintended consequences. When something is offered, something else is taken away. Well, what is happening right now with FHA policy, with this major shift that's going to probably make entire projects off limits for an FHA loan? Well, here's what is going on. Okay, now people are so up in arms about this in our industry. There are a number of people that I'm beginning to hear use the word that they think that FHA is intentionally targeting condominiums, trying to exclude hundreds and thousands of them around the country from qualifying for financing under its mortgage insurance program. Now, FHA officials, they keep coming back and they say, absolutely not. They say what is going on is what's considered their new move towards a quote unquote no tolerance move by the agency. That is something you got to be careful with. Anytime we have the government referring to no tolerance, is that really something that we want? One of the issues that people have with a lot of homeowner associations is they feel that there is a no tolerance issue with many people on the board. And because of that, People on the board aren't listening to exceptions. They aren't listening to a particular circumstance to see if there is something else that would fit more appropriately. And that is what's happening here. And what we're seeing is a major number of associations that were qualified for FHA certification going down over the last few years. That number over the last 3 to 5 years has gone down by almost half. What is the new regulation, you ask, that FHA is now proposing that could really make many projects off limits to any kind of FHA financing? Well, I'll answer that question, but after we take a break. So you don't go away. There's a lot more of Where You Live after these messages.